I don't have no felonies. I'm not crazy or none of that. It's like, I just want the truth, and it's so hard to get it from the courts. And seems like Jay-Z don't want to say anything. So, I don't want to see him go down for something that you could have just got taken care of. That's it.
He's fought for over a decade to prove who he really is. But now, Rymir Satterthwaite says his search for truth has unearthed something far more dangerous. It's not just about DNA anymore. According to him, this is about intimidation, manipulation, and a web of silence spun by two of the most powerful men in music. After years of chasing a paternity test from Jay-Z, the man he believes is his father, Rymir claims he was met with something entirely different. Threats from Diddy's entourage, pressure to back off, and a legal system he says was stacked against him from the start. What began as a personal battle has exploded into something bigger, a scandal that now stretches into criminal conspiracy, with Jay-Z and Diddy at the dark center of it all.
Like they once worked together a long time ago. They're not friends now. They don't like each other. And yeah, 50 has taken every shot, especially when Diddy has been down.
In a new court filing, Rymir drops the kind of bomb that leaves shockwaves in every corner of the industry. He says Diddy's people approached him, not to talk, not to negotiate, but to threaten. Not once, not twice, repeatedly. The message was simple: stop digging. Leave Jay-Z alone, drop the case. He didn't. And now, he says, he's exposing what he calls a brotherhood of silence, a chilling alliance between Jay-Z and Diddy that's allegedly rooted in fear, crime, and mutual protection. For years, the public watched them clink sparkling drinks at black billionaire brunches, host lavish parties together, and praise one another as brothers and strategists. But behind the scenes, Rymir says this brotherhood operates like a syndicate, not just protecting their own names, but actively suppressing others to keep secrets buried.
How do you know I'm not a gangster? Or used to be a gangster? I've been in the music industry for 30 years.
Yeah, the industry's filled with gangsters.
So what secrets are we really talking about here? Let's start with what Rymir claims is happening right now. Jay-Z, he says, isn't just sitting back while Diddy sinks into legal quicksand. He's allegedly stepping in to clean it up. Rymir's sources say Jay-Z is quietly pulling strings, funding Diddy's legal teams, bribing witnesses who might speak out, and even dispatching legal firepower to silence the most determined critics, all while keeping his own hands clean in public. That's not friendship, that's strategy. And according to Rymir, it's all part of a coordinated effort to cover up a tangled history of crime, one that dates back decades. Now let's rewind. Jay-Z has long dodged the paternity issue with calculated precision. When Rymir's mother, Wanda, tried to force a paternity test in 2010, the case got bounced between states, dismissed on technicalities, and delayed with tactics that Rymir says were deliberately deceptive. At one point, Jay-Z's attorney flat out told the court that he didn't own property in New Jersey, a statement she later admitted was false. According to Rymir's latest filings, this wasn't a mistake, it was fraud. And the courts, he says, let it happen. Now, more than 10 years later, those same lawyers are being accused of obstruction, deception, and systematically denying due process in a case that was never just about fatherhood. It was about keeping someone very young and very vulnerable quiet.
Never got anything, so why wouldn't I believe my mom? We could have been settled this, and it only takes a conversation and some words. I'm not a hateful guy. I don't hate anyone. I'm not after nobody. I'm not trying to see no one downfall. But this is just some things that just went through court, and they just expected me to just sit there and just take what they were saying. I can't do that because.
Why? Well, Wanda's sworn affidavit says she was just 16 when she allegedly got pregnant by Jay-Z in 1992. That puts their entire history into a very different legal and moral light. If that paternity test ever happens and confirms what Rymir believes, it could retroactively implicate Jay-Z in something much darker. And that's just what's on the books. Now pair that with what's surfacing about Diddy, and suddenly this brotherhood doesn't look like a coincidence. It looks like protection. Let's not forget, Jay-Z and Diddy go way back. They're not just occasional collaborators. They've covered for each other through nightclubs, shootings, courtroom scandals, and now, serious civil accusations. In 2000, they were allegedly involved in the same incident, a now infamous after-party, where both are accused of unspeakable acts involving a minor. The details are disturbing. The lawsuit names both men. Jay-Z denies everything and insists he'll expose anyone who dares accuse him. Diddy, meanwhile, has remained eerily quiet. And behind the scenes, Rymir says Jay-Z is doing everything he can to keep that silence intact.
Just different things that's not really beef though. That's just competitive.
Competitiveness.
All right, so you and Diddy, you and Puff cool?
No, I don't really rock with him
Okay,
like that.
damn. All right, I didn't know what.
The more we look, the deeper it goes. From the 1999 nightclub shooting that nearly took down Diddy's empire to the suspicious hush around Jay-Z's alleged altercation with producer Lance Rivera, it's clear these men have been maneuvering through controversy together for decades. Publicly, they're kings. Privately, Rymir paints them as kingpins, guarding not just their legacies, but their secrets. He calls it a system, a machine, one that's powered by intimidation, enforced with silence, and funded with more than just music royalties. And Diddy, he says, isn't even the mastermind. He's just the mask.
But after that major documentary comes out on Diddy, then you're going to start to hear more and more about Jay-Z and his nefarious past.
Because once you start pulling at this thread, the whole sweater begins to unravel. Rymir's case isn't the only one. Lawyers, insiders, even other alleged victims. More and more names are beginning to emerge, whispering about ND, as, payoffs, and private investigators hired to track down anyone with too much information. Some say there's a blacklist in the industry, a quiet understanding that if you speak out against certain names, your career is over. Others say careers aren't the only thing that get destroyed. And let's not forget one of the most iconic voices of her generation, Aaliyah, was closely linked to both these men before her tragic plane crash in 2001. There are whispers, some wild, some disturbingly plausible, that she had secrets too. And maybe, just maybe, her silence wasn't voluntary. What if Rymir is right? What if this isn't just about family drama or celebrity gossip? What if this is about an entire industry that runs on exploitation, where the most powerful protect each other while everyone else plays the game or gets crushed beneath it? When you look at how many accusations are quietly settled, how many lawsuits vanish, how many stories never make it past the first headline, it makes you wonder how much of what we think we know is just curated illusion.
This is not just about me. If I gotta fight for all of us, I will, but I won't let the court systems just walk over me. I won't let Jay-Z, I won't let no one just walk over me and tell me something because y'all just saying this. I want the truth. And if we can't go to the Supreme Courts, the regular courts, to find out the truth, what are they here for?
Yeah, all right, we'll get to the legal things that you've been through, the battles.
So here's what Rymir is doing. He's forcing the illusion to crack. He's not just suing Jay-Z, he's dragging the entire system into the light. Judges, attorneys, executives, everyone who helped build the wall of silence around this case. And according to him, the pushback has been relentless. Sealed records, mysterious sanctions, threats behind closed doors. He says even the courts have tried to bury his voice. But he's not going anywhere. Because to him, this isn't just personal anymore. This is about exposing what he calls an empire built on lies.
So what happens now is this is simply a civil complaint. And in a civil complaint, it goes through the technical legal process. Now, the distinction, Jessica, between civil and criminal, of course, is that civil is for monetary damages, right? The system can only reward you with money. There's allegations that this 13-year-old is suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, suffered depression, etc. So now you go to fact-finding, right?
And if that's true, if even half of it is true, then what we're looking at isn't just a lawsuit, it's a crack in the foundation, a glimpse into how power really works in the highest circles of fame, where billionaires don't just call lawyers, they allegedly call fixers, where public apologies are written by teams and private sins are erased with settlements, where brotherhood isn't about loyalty, it's about survival. And the most chilling part? According to Rymir, this isn't even the whole story, because Diddy, he says, is just the beginning, the iceberg, not the ocean. And beneath that surface lies something even more disturbing, a system so entrenched in violence, manipulation, and exploitation that it doesn't just silence people, it devours them.
Go back to that 50 Cent post, and I'm gonna tell you why 50 is literally a diabolical genius.
From whispered warnings to outright bribes, insiders describe a chilling playbook designed to keep the truth locked away. It's not just Rymir who says he's been targeted, others have quietly echoed the same pattern. Sudden phone calls from blocked numbers, offers of cash under the table, veiled threats phrased as friendly advice, and then just like that, silence. Court filings disappear, witnesses back out, careers stall. It's the kind of pressure that doesn't leave bruises, but crushes resistance all the same. According to one former assistant who once worked on the periphery of Roc Nation's legal machine, they don't have to tell you what happens if you don't play along. You just know. And that's what makes this bigger than just one paternity dispute. If the goal was to protect reputations, they could have settled in private. But if the real goal was to protect a network, a closed loop of power that spans from boardrooms to back rooms, then the links start to make sense. According to multiple sources familiar with the cases circling both moguls, there's a pattern of coercion, quiet payouts, and layered NDAS. A protection ring not built by bodyguards, but lawyers, managers, and people who owe favors.
Now, with respect to evidentiary value, yes, it happened 24 years ago, right? More than 24 years ago. But in the allegations, there's a few things. Number one, there's allegation that another celebrity was present at the time, right, in addition to other people. Number two, there's the claim by the victim, right, that she left, that she went and she was seen by a gas attendant who saw her in distress.
It all starts to take shape when we revisit the infamous white parties, those glimmering all-white affairs that Diddy made legendary in the early 2000s. At first glance, they looked like Gatsby with a hip-hop twist. White linen suits, walls of paparazzi outside the gates. But according to guests who've since come forward anonymously, the real party didn't start until the cameras left. One former model who attended several told Page Six that once the lights dropped and the guests thinned out, there were no rules. And more than once, she said, there were people who looked far too young, teenagers dressed like they were in their 20s, nervous, like they didn't know where they were. These were the parties where stars were made, careers were broken, and silence was expected. Behind those high Hamptons hedges and million-dollar smiles, there are stories of manipulation, of substances passed without questions, and of footage recorded without consent. The FBI has reportedly taken interest in the guest list, but to date, no indictments have been handed down involving the parties themselves. Still, the whispers are hard to ignore, especially when they come from the mouths of former employees, stylists, and even security.
Don't trust nobody. In Hollywood, specifically, when you get there, a lot of people don't know how to say no. That's the difference between New York City and California.
And where was Jay-Z during all of this? Right there, always close to Diddy, always dressed to match, often the second one off the private jet. The two of them were inseparable at those events, trading microphones for mimosas, acting more like business partners than friends. But now, with lawsuits circling and names being named, their closeness has become its own liability. Because if these allegations are even half true, then that proximity means shared knowledge, possibly even shared responsibility.
This morning, rap mogul Jay-Z is denying allegations he sexually assaulted a 13-year-old girl alongside rapper Sean Diddy Combs. That civil lawsuit filed against Combs in October was amended Sunday to include Jay-Z. The accuser, identified only as Jane Doe, says she was sexually assaulted by both men.
It's why Rymir's claims have struck such a nerve. He isn't just demanding a DNA test. He's calling out a structure that, according to him, relies on fear to function. And that raises the most damning question of all. If this brotherhood really exists, how many people has it already silenced? Let's not forget, this is an industry that's had its share of sudden disappearances, of whistleblowers who go quiet, of former insiders who suddenly retire. Look at how quickly some former party regulars have distanced themselves. Look at the cryptic posts, the unfollowings, the pointed silence from certain A-listers. We've seen this before. The moment when a story starts as gossip and then, one day, becomes evidence.
Hell, or they're already living separate lives, and we may actually see one of the biggest divorces in Hollywood is because Jay-Z is up next to be exposed.
It's no coincidence that this storm erupted just as Diddy was being named in one lawsuit after another. One accuser, a woman who says she was assaulted at just 13, claims Jay-Z was there too. The details are graphic, the timeline precise. Jay-Z has denied everything and publicly dared the accuser to pursue criminal charges. But critics have pointed out that civil court is often the only path survivors are given, especially when facing billionaires backed by entire legal ecosystems. These alleged victims would deserve real justice if that were the case, Jay-Z said. But what if they can't get to that justice? What if the entire path is blocked before it begins? Because according to Rymir, the obstruction doesn't end at the courthouse doors. He says records have been sealed without reason, judges recused without cause, and sanctions imposed for violating orders that never existed. And in some cases, it's not the defendants throwing up roadblocks, it's the system itself. Which begs the question, if these two titans can allegedly manipulate the legal system, intimidate their accusers, and bury the truth, what else are they capable of? There's a phrase that keeps surfacing in the filings, in the whispers, in the late-night posts from anonymous insiders: the brotherhood of silence. It's a term that sounds dramatic until you consider what it might mean. A pact among powerful men, a shared understanding that image is everything, that truth is dangerous, and that loyalty comes above all else. Rymir says it's real, and he says it's still active, because even now, as the lawsuits mount, the silence remains deafening.
I can only say as a father that I hope I instill with them the values that they would want to look for in a man. And I think I did when Beyonce wrote on her, I think it was her first album, maybe it was the second one, the song Daddy, that she hoped that she found someone just like her daddy.
And then there's the wider picture. A music industry that still rewards gatekeepers. An elite circle where deals are done at penthouses and parties, where speaking out isn't brave, it's dangerous. We've seen what happens to those who talk too much. Their songs get shelved, their tours collapse, their phones stop ringing. And for those who threaten to take down the wrong man, sometimes they don't just vanish from the charts, they vanish from the narrative entirely. This isn't just about whether Jay-Z fathered a son. It's about whether two of the most influential figures in modern music built their empires on fear and silence. And if they did, then the next wave of revelations won't just shake the charts. It could collapse an entire institution. Was Aaliyah's tragic end the pivot point that cemented a silent pact between Jay-Z and Diddy? It's a question that haunts the edges of this entire saga, not just because of her talent or influence, but because of the vacuum her absence created. Aaliyah was more than a rising star. She was a force, the kind of artist who shifted the temperature of an entire genre without even trying. And she had personal ties to both men, romantically linked to Jay-Z at one point, deeply connected to Damon Dash, and allegedly wary of the very circles they were rising through. Her passing wasn't just a heartbreak, it was a reshuffling of power. The question we're left with is whether it was simply fate or something more calculated. A few in the know figures have whispered that her demise marked the moment the industry's most powerful realized what total control really looked like.
And now removed her. So civil complaint, simply allegations, needs to be proven in a court of law, but if true, it could rise to the level of criminality, and we'll see what happens after the DA looks and investigates.
That idea might sound extreme until we look at the conspiracy theories that took root in the aftermath. The whispers about blood sacrifice, about hidden societies choosing one star over another, didn't come from tabloids alone. They came from a growing number of fans and former insiders who saw patterns too eerie to ignore. Aaliyah passes away in 2001 under bizarre and preventable circumstances. A plane overloaded, a questionable pilot, a last-minute flight no one needed to take. Meanwhile, Beyonce, another prodigious R&B talent with industry grooming and Jay-Z at her side, takes center stage soon after. The timing isn't evidence, but it is unnerving. For those who follow the so-called Illuminati breadcrumbs, this wasn't just a loss. It was a signal. Whether or not one believes in secret cabals pulling strings, what's undeniable is the silence that followed. Jay-Z, so vocal in other crises, has rarely spoken of Aaliyah. Diddy, too, kept distance, even though their circles overlapped constantly. And yet both benefited from the vacuum she left. Careers soared, empires were built. The idea that Aaliyah's loss helped consolidate power, that it removed an unpredictable variable from the equation, is the kind of theory that's hard to prove, but impossible to forget. In this light, the so-called brotherhood of silence isn't just about hiding the present. It might also be about burying the past. So here's where we're left, with a lawsuit that may be the beginning of something much bigger, or the final scream before silence takes hold again. Rymir says he won't back down, but history says the machine he's up against doesn't lose easily. And now we want to know what you think. Is this the unraveling of a legendary empire, or just another scandal that gets swept under the rug? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We're watching. And until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and remember, in this business, the glitz is never the whole story.